All right, this is sample problem 1 for epistasis. Epistasis is when multiple genes affect a trait. An excellent example of this is skin pigment in being albino or having skin pigmentation. For example, in this problem here, we have 2 black rats that are albino, that have albino and black offspring. So I wanted to determine what those possible genotypes are for all of the individuals involved here. Notice in our key that we have the alleles for color, gray and black, but we also have the alleles for pigmentation. Pigmentation is either absent if it's recessive or present if it's dominant. The presence of the lowercase, the double recessive allele for pigmentation negates the color allele. So if an individual is heterozygous for color and then homozygous recessive for pigment being present, the individual will be albino and will not show up as being gray as that first allele, that first trait would indicate. The presence or absence of pigment is controlling this here. So let's consider what we know. In this problem, we know that we have 2 black rats. Well, so I have a black rat and a black rat. What do I know about black? I know that from my key that being black is recessive. So the only way they can have a black genotype is to have little g, little g. But now what about the A's? What about the second trait here, considering whether pigment is present or absent? Well, because I can see that those rats are black, it means that they have pigment. So I know they have at least 1 copy of the dominant trait. I don't necessarily know what the second copy is of pigment being present or absent. Let's look at the kids. The offspring from this cross, so this is the parental generation. The F1 generation, I see that I have albino and black offspring. Okay, so it means that some of my offspring are showing up as albino, which indicates little a, little a. It also says that some of my offspring are black, indicating little g, little g. We need to fill in the missing alleles. Let's consider the black offspring first. The offspring are black, which means I can see a pigmentation, I can see color, which means that they must have at least 1 copy of this dominant A trait. At this point, I don't necessarily know what the second trait, the second allele is here. And we'll prove that with the Punnett square in just a minute. I also know, let's consider now the albino offspring. What could the alleles for color be in the albino offspring? Well, looking at the parents, the first parent can give a little g or a little g. Not a lot of choice there. Only one option. The second parent likewise can only give a little g or a little g. So here's the genotype of the albino offspring. Here's the genotype of the black offspring. The only question is, what's the second allele? Now, before we try and figure that out, let's go back and consider our parents again. We have 1 allele written down for each of them for color, for pigment being present or absent, capital A. But if I look at this offspring here, I can see that we have 2 little a's. Where did these little a's come from? That's right, they had to come 1 from each parent. So that little a here and little a here. This allows this parent here to be black to the 2 little g's and have pigment because they have the heterozygous genotype for pigmentation. Let's go ahead and put this in a Punnett square.